My family said I was too young to raise my son, and tried to replace him with my grieving sister-in-law, even hiring lawyers to take him from me. What happens when grief turns into obsession? One mother's heartbreaking journey to protect her child from her own family's twisted plans will leave you speechless. I'm Kane, a 30-year-old woman who just had her first child 3 weeks ago. My son Oliver is perfect and healthy. My husband, Isaac, a 35-year-old guy, and I have been together for 7 years and married for 2. We both work in IT and live approximately 4 hours apart from my family. The difficulty began when I disclosed my pregnancy at 6 months. My brother Victor, 35, and his wife, Emily, 34, have been trying to have children for the past 5 years. Emily miscarried twice in the first year, then nothing for a while. She became pregnant last December and carried the baby for 7 months before losing it. It was upsetting to both of them. Emily instantly fled the room after I told the family about my pregnancy. Victor followed her, and they didn't return. My mother, Julia, 65, a female, later told me that Emily grieved for hours that night. I felt her pain, but I couldn't keep my pregnancy hidden forever. Things were strange after that. Emily began emailing me stories on pregnancy difficulties and stillbirths. She would contact my parents and ask thorough questions about my health and doctor appointments. When I returned home for Christmas, she started patting my belly without asking and making statements about how she would be the best person to care for the kid. My mother raised Victor and me after our father died when I was 15. She has always been protective of both of her children, but she has a soft spot for Victor because he stayed close to home while I went away to college and employment. She adores Emily, and treats her as if she were the daughter she never had. Following Christmas, my mother began having unusual chats with me. She would query if Isaac and I were truly prepared for parenthood because we both worked long hours. She questioned whether we had enough money saved, and if our flat was large enough. She kept mentioning Emily's part-time work from home, which would give her more time to care for a kid. I assumed she was just concerned about me being a first-time mother so far from relatives. Then, in February, at 8 months pregnant, she called with a proposal that made my blood run cold. She stated that Emily was having a really difficult time since her loss. The grief counselor recommended that being among newborns could help her heal. My mother asked Emily if she could come stay with us for a few weeks after Oliver was born to help with the baby and bond with him. I told her categorically not. That's when she disclosed her true plan. My mother stated that Emily and Victor had discussed adoption possibilities, but they were costly and had extensive waiting lists. Because I was young and had a long career ahead of me, it could be best if Emily and Victor reared Oliver. They owned a house with a yard. Emily could become a stay-at-home mother, and they were more mature and financially secure. I hung up with her. Isaac worked late that night. I sat in our nursery, gazing at all of the items we had purchased for our kid, trying to absorb what had just occurred. My own mother suggested I give my baby to my brother's wife. The calls started the following day, not only from my parents but also from Victor. He claimed Emily was rarely eating or sleeping. She had converted the extra room into a nursery and was purchasing baby clothing. He was concerned about her mental state and thought that having a baby to care for could help her. He suggested I'd be helping Emily heal while also improving Oliver's life. He pointed out that Isaac and I hadn't even married yet, lived in a small apartment, and both worked 60-hour weeks. How could we possibly provide the attention that a child deserved? I informed Victor that Isaac and I were intending to marry before the baby arrived, and that many working parents have healthy, happy children. He accused me of being selfish and emphasized the importance of family support. The pressure increased during the next few weeks. My mother would call crying about Emily fading away from grief. My Aunt Clara, 54, a female, and my mother's sister, also began calling. She claimed the entire family was concerned about Emily and that I had the authority to help her. Emily never phoned me personally, but she began leaving comments on all of my social media posts. When I uploaded an image of the nursery, she replied that she had chosen the same crib. When I mentioned baby clothes shopping, she replied she had already purchased garments in newborn and 3-month sizes. I reached my breaking point at 38 weeks pregnant. Emily and Victor arrived at our place unannounced on a Saturday morning. Isaac was in the grocery store, so I answered the door alone. Emily rushed past me and went directly to the nursery. She began rearranging things and discussing how she planned to set up their abode. She had brought a car seat and wanted to make sure it was properly placed for when they drove Oliver home. I told her she had to leave. That's when she broke down entirely. She got on her knees in the nursery and begged me to let her have my baby. She claimed God took her son away because she was supposed to have mine. She promised to allow me visit and be engaged in his life. Victor attempted to calm her down, but she was yelling about how unfair it was that I got to have a healthy baby when I didn't want one as badly as she did. She claimed I was too young and selfish to be a good mother. I phoned the cops. By the time they arrived, Isaac had returned and persuaded Emily to stop screaming. The authorities took statements, but said it was a family affair. They advised us to seek a restraining order if we felt unsafe. That following day, Isaac and I married at the courthouse. We needed to ensure that our parenting rights were clearly defined, and that my relatives could not legally intervene. Oliver was born 2 weeks later. We did not tell my relatives that I was in labor. My mother found out from a mutual friend who saw Isaac's social media post announcing the birth. The calls began instantly. My mother was in tears for missing her grandson's birth. Victor was upset that we had not invited them. But Emily's reply frightened me the most. She called using Victor's phone, and when I answered, believing it was him, she began to express her excitement at finally seeing her son. She said that she already had his room and had taken time off work to be with him full time. I understood she really thought Oliver was going to be hers. Isaac and I decided not to contact my family for the time being. We blocked their numbers and set our social media profiles to private. My mother has been sending letters and packages to our apartment complex, but we have returned them unread. I learned via a cousin that Emily has been telling folks at their church that we are going through a difficult time, and that they intend to adopt our baby. She has been collecting contributions for baby supplies and has put up a nursery for guests to see. My mother has been telling relatives that we are being influenced by Isaac's family and will finally come to our senses. She claims Emily only needs time to bond with Oliver, and everything will work out. I never expected my mother to endorse someone else's claim to my child. I thought families were supposed to protect one another, not collaborate to take away what was most important. Isaac has been amazing throughout this. His parents are across the country, but they've been supportive and offered to help us relocate if necessary. They were taken aback when I told them what my family was doing. We're thinking of moving before Oliver gets older. I don't want to live in terror that my brother and his wife will try to steal him. I also do not want Oliver to grow up believing that he belongs to someone else. The most difficult aspect is grieving the family bonds I thought I had. I was confident that my mother would always be there for me. I imagined my brother would be protective of me and thrilled to be an uncle. Instead, they've chosen Emily's illusion over my rights as Oliver's mom. I keep worrying if I'm being overly harsh. Emily has been through significant trauma, and sadness can drive individuals to do desperate things. However, yearning to parent someone else's child is more than just grief. It's something far more troubling. Isaac believes we should hire a lawyer to document everything in case we need legal protection later. Part of me hopes that this will all go away once Emily receives good care, but another part of me realizes that this may be our new future. I simply want to raise my son in peace, without continuously looking over my shoulder. I never imagined being a mother would mean losing the rest of my family. Update 1. I hadn't planned to post again, but things have gotten more problematic. Oliver is 11 weeks old and thriving. The newborn phase has been difficult, but Isaac and I are coping well. We've settled into a rhythm, and I want to return to work in a few weeks. A month ago, I decided to contact my mother's pastor at their church. Pastor Harris, a 50-year-old guy, has known our family for years and conducted Victor and Emily's wedding. I believed he would be able to assist Emily realize that what she's doing is unhealthy. I called him on Tuesday evening to explain the issue. I enjoyed that he listened without interrupting. When I finished, he indicated he had noticed some worrying behavior from Emily, but had not realized the whole gravity of the situation. He informed me that Emily had been visiting him for counseling sessions about her loss, which was normal and healthy. What troubled him was that she had begun talking about a baby joining their family soon. When he probed for information, she became evasive and changed the subject. Pastor Harris stated that he would meet with Emily and Victor together and try to help them understand that their current path was unhealthy for everyone concerned. He also offered to mediate a conversation between our families, if we agreed. I agreed to allow him 2 weeks to work on them, then we would reassess. The first week passed quietly. No calls, no unexpected visits, and no packages. Isaac and I began to believe that professional involvement would help Emily confront reality. Then Pastor Harris called back with an update that made matters worse. He'd met with Victor and Emily 3 times. During the first meeting, Victor appeared to recognize that their plan was unrealistic. He acknowledged that Emily's sadness had impaired their judgment and that they should support our decision to retain Oliver. Emily, on the other hand, responded in an entirely different way. She argued that I had requested them to raise Oliver since Isaac and I were not prepared for parenting. She suggested our no-contact policy was merely momentary stress and that we'd come around once we saw how difficult parenting was. Pastor Harris informed me that Emily had meticulous plans for Oliver's christening, first Christmas, and even his first day of school. She spoke about him as if he were already living with them. During the second meeting, Pastor Harris attempted to make Emily understand that Oliver belonged with his parents. Emily became furious and accused him of misunderstanding God's plan. She said that her baby had died so she could raise Oliver instead. By the third meeting, Victor had fully altered his mind. Instead of admitting their goal was ridiculous, he began defending Emily's right to hope for a family. He claimed I was being cruel by separating Oliver from someone who would love him wholeheartedly. Pastor Harris informed me that he was quitting his counseling contact with them and that they seek professional help elsewhere. He was concerned that Emily's grasp on reality was weakening, not strengthening. He also told me something that made my stomach drop. Emily had been visiting the church nursery during services and assisting with the newborns. She had begun referring to one specific infant as preparation for when Oliver came to live with them. The baby's parents had requested Emily to stop holding their infant, but Emily insisted she was only helping out. Pastor Harris had to prohibit her from the nursery, causing a scene in front of the entire congregation. After hearing all of this, Isaac and I realized we needed to take more severe safeguards. We installed security cameras around our flat and changed the locks. We also began changing our routines and being more cautious about sharing anything online. 2 weeks following Pastor Harris's contact, we received confirmation that our safeguards were required. Our neighbor knocked on our door on a Saturday morning. Mrs. Carter, 45, a female, lives across the hall and has always been friendly. She informed us that a woman had inquired about us in the foyer the previous afternoon. The woman claimed to be my sister and announced that she was preparing a surprise visit. She wanted to know about our work schedules and when we typically left the flat. Mrs. Carter felt something was odd about her tale and refused to provide any information. Mrs. Carter described the woman as blonde, around 33 years old, wearing a pink sweater and carrying a diaper bag. It was definitely Emily. That same day, I learned via my cousin Ava, 24, a female, that Emily had been posting in local parenting forums on social media. She was seeking for help on introducing a baby to a new household and discussing adoption timetables. Ava took a screenshot of some of the posts before Emily removed them. Emily inquired how long it usually takes biological parents to adjust after placing a child for adoption. In another, she inquired about the most effective strategy to move a baby to a new caregiver while minimizing trauma. Emily's posts made it plain that she still believed Oliver was going to live with them. She wasn't asking hypotheticals, she was making actual plans. Ava also told me that my mother had been calling relatives to see if they had heard from us. She was telling others that we were suffering from postpartum depression and needed family support, but we were too proud to seek treatment. My mother portrayed herself as a compassionate grandmother who simply wanted to support her daughter through a difficult period. She didn't mention Emily's demands. Isaac and I realized we had to be more proactive. We sent a letter to my mother, Victor, and Emily that clearly stated our viewpoint. We emphasized that Oliver would be staying with us permanently, and that any attempts to remove him or interfere with our family would result in legal action. We sent the letter certified mail so we could prove it was received. We also saved copies for our records in case we needed them later. Victor called 2 days after he received the letter. He was outraged and accused us of being dramatic and nasty. He claimed Emily was finally recuperating and that our letter had led her to experience a setback. He stated Emily was coming to terms with the fact that Oliver would not be moving in. However, our letter convinced her that we were being influenced by outside forces. She was more determined than ever to protect Oliver from our influence. I explained to Victor that Emily's rehabilitation could not come at the expense of my family's safety and well-being. He said I was being selfish, and Emily simply needed more time. When I hung up, I understood Victor had developed the same delusions as Emily. He honestly believed that their yearning for a kid justified attempting to take mine. The problem had progressed beyond mourning and into something far more dangerous. Emily wasn't only hoping things would turn out in her favor, she was actively preparing to take Oliver away from us. Isaac and I started browsing for apartments in other places. We weren't ready to relocate yet, but we wanted to be prepared if things deteriorated further. We also spoke with a family lawyer who specializes in custody and protective orders. She reviewed our paperwork and informed us that we have grounds for a restraining order if Emily made any further direct contact or threats. The lawyer also recommended that we keep a full record of all interactions and situations. She stated that if this ever went to court, we would require clear evidence of the pattern of harassment and delusion. I never dreamed I'd need legal protection from my own family, But Emily's conduct was becoming increasingly unpredictable, and my mother and Victor were enabling her rather than getting her the care she required. Oliver was growing and changing every day, and I wanted to cherish these early months with him. Instead, I was always concerned about keeping him safe from those who should have been celebrating his arrival. Update 2. Oliver is already 7 months old and has begun crawling. He is such a pleasant baby that rarely cries unless he is hungry or weary. Isaac and I have settled into our parenting routine, and I've been back at work for 3 months. Things had been peaceful in the family until last week, when everything burst in ways I hadn't expected. My cousin Ava called me on Monday evening with news that would change everything. She had been hesitant to become involved in the family conflict, but what she discovered convinced her she needed to speak out. Ava works as a social worker in the county where my mother and Victor live. Last month she was given a case involving a couple who had been reported for seeking to buy a baby through illicit means. When Ava came for the house visit, she was surprised to learn that the pair was Victor and Emily. A neighbor called the county after overhearing Emily on the phone discussing financial arrangements for a private adoption, which sounded fishy. The neighbor was concerned because Emily had been showing off a nursery and claimed a baby was on the way, but no reputable adoption agencies appeared to be involved. Ava had to recuse herself from the case right away owing to the family link, but she obtained enough details to realize what had happened. Victor and Emily had been dealing with a person they found online who claimed to match births with adoptive families. They had previously paid thousands of dollars in fees and were waiting for a kid to become available. The individual they were working with turned out to be a scammer, collecting money from needy couples while claiming to organize adoptions that would never take place. Several other couples had lost a lot of money to the same scam. The most alarming aspect was what the investigator discovered in Victor and Emily's home. The nursery was not simply made up for any newborn. It was decorated specifically for Oliver. They had printed images of Oliver from Isaac's social media sites and hung them in frames around the room. Emily had been purchasing clothing in the exact sizes that Oliver would require as he grew. She had even made a photo album documenting his first months, as if she had been present throughout. The investigator also discovered Emily's detailed timeline, which showed when she expected Oliver to move in with them. She had set dates for when she believed we would realize we couldn't handle parenting and when the changeover would take place. Ava said the social worker who took over the case called it as one of the most complex illusions she'd ever seen. Emily sincerely believed Oliver belonged to her and that everything she did was in preparation for his impending arrival. Victor totally supported Emily's hallucination. He had been investigating grandparents' rights laws and legal options for challenging our custody. He even spoke with lawyers about what grounds they may use to claim we were unfit parents. The county concluded its inquiry after deciding that Victor and Emily were victims of the adoption scam rather than perpetrators. However, they recommended Emily for a mandated mental health evaluation due to worries about her grasp on reality. Ava told me all of this because she was concerned for our safety. The social worker had suggested that Victor and Emily have no contact with children until Emily received proper therapy, but there was no legal way to enforce this recommendation. Following Ava's call, Isaac and I had a lengthy debate about what to do next. We realized we had to take quick action to safeguard Oliver and ourselves. The next day, we met with our lawyer and gave her all of the new information Ava had provided. Our lawyer was frightened by Emily's plans and advised us to petition for a protective order right away. She also urged that we thoroughly document Oliver's present living circumstances in case Victor and Emily attempted to file fraudulent reports with child services. We photographed our clean, safe home and gathered paperwork regarding Oliver's medical care and our employment stability. On Wednesday, we acquired a protective order barring Victor, Emily and my mother from coming within 600 feet of us or our apartment. The ruling also forbade any communication through third parties. We assumed this would finally end the situation, but we were mistaken. On Friday evening, my mother came up at Isaac's job. She managed to get past building security and accosted him in the parking lot as he left. She was crying and begged him to reconsider separating Oliver from his family. She claimed Emily was deteriorating rather than improving, and that seeing Oliver might be the only way for her to recover. My mother actually asked Isaac how much money it would cost us to let Emily spend time with Oliver. She offered to pay our rent and child care if we only allowed supervised visits. When Isaac explained that Oliver was not for sale and that Emily required professional assistance, my mother became furious. She blamed Isaac of turning me against my family and ruining Emily's last opportunity for happiness. Isaac filmed the conversation on his phone, which was wise because my mother later denied speaking the most of it. Building security eventually removed my mother from the site, and Isaac's employer filed a police report since she had breached the protective order. That weekend, we decided to move. We had been thinking about going for months, but this incident convinced us that staying in the region was unsafe for any of us. Isaac's employer has a branch office in another state, and they agreed to allow him to transfer immediately given the circumstances. My company enables remote work so I can continue working while we relocate. We're not telling anyone in my family where we're going. We've informed Ava that we're leaving the region, but we have yet to provide her with our new address. We appreciate her efforts to assist us, but we cannot risk the information reaching the other parties. The most difficult part of moving is realizing that this issue will not resolve itself. Emily's hallucination has only become stronger over time, and my mother and Victor are indulging her rather than providing her the right aid. I keep thinking about the photo album Ava mentioned, which Emily had compiled and organized as if she had been present. The amount of fantasy and forethought required is unnerving. We are departing this weekend. We hired expert movers and handled everything via Isaac's company, so there is no paper trail pointing back to us. I understand that some people may think we're overreacting, but the social worker's report clearly said that Emily's conduct was worsening rather than improving. The fictitious adoption scheme demonstrated how far she was ready to go to have a baby, even if it meant breaking the law. Oliver needs to grow up without this cloud looming over him. He deserves parents who can prioritize his needs, rather than continually looking over their shoulders. I'm grieving the loss of the family I thought I had, but I'm also relieved that we're taking precautions to protect the family we've created together. Update 3. Oliver is 15 months old and walks everywhere. We've lived in our new city for 8 months, and we finally feel like we can breathe normally again. Isaac enjoys his new job, and I've thrived on remote work. We found a great apartment in a family-friendly neighborhood, and Oliver now attends a superb daycare center 3 days a week. For the first several months after moving, I jumped whenever someone knocked on our door, or I noticed a car that looked familiar. However, the persistent anxiety has subsided. We've established a new routine and found pals who are unaware of our family issues. 2 months ago, Ava called with an update that provided some closure to the matter. Emily had been hospitalized following what Victor characterized to relatives as a nervous breakdown. Ava didn't know what caused Emily's hospitalization, but she was admitted to an inpatient psychiatric clinic for 3 weeks. During Emily's treatment, Victor began visiting a counselor independently. According to Ava, Victor revealed to the counselor that he had been so concentrated on assisting Emily through her loss that he had lost sight of what was reasonable. Victor reportedly informed the counselor that he knew taking someone else's baby was wrong, but Emily's anguish was so great that he convinced himself they were benefiting everyone involved. He stated that he sincerely believed we would soon realize we couldn't manage motherhood and would be happy for their intervention. The counselor helped Victor realize that allowing Emily's hallucination had stopped her from processing her grief in a healthy manner. Emily had developed an elaborate fiction in order to avoid coping with the reality of her loss. Emily and Victor relocated to another state to live with Emily's sister when she was released from the hospital. Ava heard they were beginning again somewhere where they wouldn't be constantly reminded of their losses. My mother appears to have battled with the impact of everything that transpired. Several family members have distanced themselves from her after learning about her role and urging us to give up Oliver. Ava stated that my mother has been telling people that she was simply trying to help everyone and that the issue had gotten out of hand. She claimed she never intended for things to get to this point. But Ava also told me that my mother had been investigating grandparents' rights laws, just like Victor had. She had spoken with lawyers about whether she could claim we were unfit parents due to our ages and job schedules. My mother apparently believed that if she could establish a legal case for the family to gain custody, we would finally agree to let Emily raise Oliver rather than fight in court. She truly believed that this was a sensible answer that would please everyone. This reaffirmed that we had made the right decision in moving. My mother had done more than just put us under emotional pressure. She had aggressively sought to undermine our parenting rights. Ava asked if I wanted her to forward my mother's request for contact information, so that she might try to re-establish our relationship. I told Ava no. Some may say I'm being overly harsh, but keep in mind that my mother was willing to take legal action to separate me from my child. That crosses an irreversible line. Isaac and I have discussed whether we will ever feel secure communicating with my family again. Currently, the answer is no. Maybe this may change in the future. But we are not there yet. Oliver is thriving in his new environment. He's a curious, lively toddler who enjoys books and building with blocks. He's starting to say more words and has the most adorable chuckle. I sometimes wonder what kind of relationship he would have had with his extended family if circumstances had been different. But then I recall Ava's description of Emily's photo album, which contained photographs of Oliver arranged as if he belonged to her. I can't expose Oliver to people who see him as anything other than who he is. My kid. not a replacement for someone else's grief. We intend to have another baby in the next year or two. When we do, no one in my original family will be aware of the pregnancy until we decide if and when to inform them. Our new existence isn't ideal, but it's pleasant. We joined a local parenting group and made friends with other young families. Oliver has playdates, birthday parties, and all of the typical things I wanted him to have. Isaac's parents make regular visits and have become excellent grandparents to Oliver. They appreciate our choices and support our family without attempting to dominate or manipulate us. Some people reading this may believe I should have done more to help Emily cope with her loss, or given my mother another chance to prove she had changed. However, protecting Oliver had to be my top priority. Children are not therapeutic tools for adults dealing with loss. Oliver's role is simply to be a happy, healthy child, not to cure someone else's trauma or replace someone else's void. The restraining order is still in effect, but we haven't used it since moving. We preserve copies of all documents in case we ever need legal protection again, which I pray we never do. Nobody chooses to move across the nation to escape their own family, yet it is sometimes necessary. We exchanged the support system I assumed we had for the peace of mind we truly required. Oliver will grow up knowing he is loved and wanted just as he is. That is more valuable than keeping relationships with those who viewed him as something he was not. For anyone else struggling with family members who refuse to respect limits surrounding their children, believe your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. Protecting your child's safety and well-being is always the best option, even if it requires making painful decisions about family relationships. We are establishing new traditions and making new memories. Oliver will not recall any of the drama from his first year, which is precisely as it should be. Sometimes the family you create is more important than the one you are born into. We learnt that lesson the hard way, but we've come out stronger and more bonded than ever.